Or are we afraid of success? If you've been around here at all, you know that I'm not one of these like hoorah motivational speaker kind of guys. That's just not the energy that I bring. I know that about myself and I'm okay with it. But as much as I know that business is about money and numbers and strategy, I know it's also just as much about mindset and belief. We were in our author community the other day, and someone said how they just need to get over this fear of failure. They need to get over thinking what happens if it doesn't work and just get started with doing things. But I think it's interesting because I think a lot of times whenever we're afraid of failing, we're almost just as much, if not more, afraid of succeeding. And that sounds stupid, but hear me out. What I think happens, at least with me, is I know that I have the skill set to operate at the level that I'm currently operating because I'm doing it. And sometimes it might be hard and sometimes it might not be exactly what I want it to be, but I've been doing it. And so I know that I can. But we don't believe that we have the skill set or can be the person that we need to be in order to get and maintain success. And so it's like we're afraid that we won't know how to act once we get there. Let me give like an example of what I'm thinking. So if you're bringing in, say, $3,000 a month, and that's sufficient, it's covering the bills, you're getting your things paid, and maybe it's hard to do sometimes, maybe you have to do the little acrobats every week to make sure that the money's in the right accounts and that the payment dates are working and everything else, but you're doing it. You know that you can do that because you have been doing it, and it might not be like a perfect system, but it's been working for you. If instead of getting $3,000 a month, you were at $10 or $20 or $30,000 a month, well, then what happens? At that point, maybe you need to have a team helping you. And if you've never hired a team or you've never led a team, like you don't know if you have the skill set to do that. And so then that's scary. That's a whole different version of you that you've never met before, and you don't know if you can. What if, right now, let's say you have a lot of high interest credit card debt that you're paying off. If you have a lot of high interest credit card debt that you're paying off, the next thing you need to do is pay off the credit cards. Like if any extra money comes in, like that needs to be the goal. But I think sometimes we're afraid of getting past those obvious next steps whenever the thing after that isn't obvious. So like if you're sitting there with all this money coming in and all your expenses are covered and all your cash flow timing is perfect and you have no debt to speak of, then what do you do with the extra money? Like there's unlimited options on how you can reinvest it or how you can deploy it in your business or whatever. And whenever there's unlimited options, it's kind of paralyzing because then like, what if you choose the wrong one or what if you don't choose the best one? And so I think we limit ourselves to living within a version of our business and a version of ourselves that may be more difficult, but comfortable, or maybe more difficult, but we know how to do it, instead of branching out into maybe being something that we haven't been before, even if it might be better. And it's almost like we don't believe that we can operate outside of this little box that we've created for ourselves. We can come down to here and we can go up to there, but we can't go much higher than that because otherwise we don't know how to act there. We don't know what it looks like there. And what if I get there and then realize that I can't lead a team and now I have to fire everybody and everyone's unemployed and I have all this work to do and I have to do it all by myself? Or what if I get there and people think that I'm just an imposter and they realize that I'm not really as good as I am and I'm not like those people who are there, and so I really don't deserve it. And we get in our heads about that kind of thing. And I'm the same way. Like I'll look at the goals that I have for the business and I have these goals, but there's a part of me that says like, yeah, but I'm this size business because I've been this size business. There's no way I could be that size business. That's for somebody else. And I've seen the times that kind of thinking has changed the decisions that I make. Like if I have a decision to invest in something that I believe is going to grow the business, maybe it's another employee, maybe it's expanding, maybe it's marketing or whatever, then sometimes I'll find myself pulling back on that decision. And it's not conscious, but I think part of it is that I'm worried about what happens if it works. What happens if I actually get to that point and then I have to act that way now. I don't get to be this size business anymore. And so this is what I've done that's helped with that. I think the thing is we have to remember you're not currently the size business that you were when you first started or from before you started, but you still learned the skills that you needed to get here. And the skills that you have now aren't the skills that you had before you started writing your book or before you started your business. And it's going to be the same thing going forward. Like we're not going to get to the point where all of a sudden just $1 million is dropped in your lap and just money comes through the door the very next day, every single month without fail. It's going to be a rant. And along that process, you learn the skills that you need in order to be at the level that you're at. As an example for me, whenever I first started this business, it was a part-time practice. I was doing this on nights and weekends. And so I had to develop the skills of having to do work and do business nights and weekends, especially during tax season. And I learned through that process that I needed help. So I hired a VA, hired an admin who was helping me manage emails, helping me manage client documents and download those, helping me with status updates and things like that. And that was huge for me, but I had never done that before. I'd never hired a VA. I never had somebody helping me at that level with my work. And so I had to learn how to delegate. I had to learn how to communicate about my expectations. And I had to learn how to tell people when something wasn't being done exactly the way that I wanted it done, or to figure out when that was okay for it not to be done the exact same way that I would have done it. And I learned that process, but I didn't have those skills before I did that. As things grew, I hired other people part-time, and some of them were great fits and some of them were not so great fits. And so I had to learn the skills on how to identify who was a good fit for the firm and who was not. And so that kind of led us to coming up with our core values and our core beliefs and the things that anyone who works with North CPA should encapsulate. They should have these like 3 or 4 core tenets. And if they don't, then it's just not a good fit, and that's okay. But in that process, in addition to learning like who is a good fit for the firm and how to identify that, I also had to learn how to let people go. And that is not fun. That is not anything I ever want to get good at doing, and I never want to be comfortable with it. But it's something that I've had to do. I had to do it at previous jobs, but it is a skill and it is something that you kind of have to learn from. I think one of the biggest hangups for me whenever I was growing was I was afraid to use the money that I had for things that I wasn't 100% certain would pay off. And I thought what I could do is I could by myself grow the business to the point where then I could hire somebody else with the money that I had generated myself. The issue that I wasn't thinking about at the time was if I was the one doing all the work to bring in all the revenue, and if I was bringing in enough revenue to hire someone else full time to help me with the work, then either I would have to be way overloaded up until that point, to the point where I'd be burnt out, or at the point that I hired the employee, then neither of us would be at full capacity because there obviously wouldn't be enough work to go around. So something that I wish I had done differently is I wish I had actually hired a full-time employee sooner. Because I think if I had hired that full-time employee sooner, I would have been able to get more things off of my plate and then been able to grow the business that much faster instead of depleting the cash that I had over that first year without having that support and that help that I needed. So I did eventually hire Ben. He's been amazing for the firm. I wish I'd hired him way earlier. I wish I'd hired him from day one, to be honest with you, but I don't think that would have been possible. But he's allowed me to focus on the things that I'm good at while he worries about the things that he's good at. But again, that's something I had to learn. And so like now we're bringing on a bookkeeper full-time in a few weeks. And actually, when is this going to post? This is going to post about a week or two before her first day. And I'm doing that what feels like a little earlier than I'm ready for. And I'm doing it because I know me, and I know that if I don't make myself, I'm going to wait until after I'm ready to do something, whenever it may be a little bit too late. And so I'm doing this a little bit early to try and counteract that, because that's something that I learned along the way. So the point of all this big rambling and life story is we learn the skills along the way that we need for that next step we need to take. And we don't have to worry about not having the skills that we're going to need a year from now or $1 million from now. We just need to have the skills to take that next step. And we have those skills because we're where we are now. Someone told me recently that being a business owner is one of the most, how do they say it? One of the most formative personal experiences that you can have. And actually, it's almost a spiritual growth experience, because you have to become a version of yourself that you never would have had to deal with if you were not a business owner. The skills that you have to learn, the empathy, how to talk to people, how to put yourself in someone else's shoes, how to navigate really, really horrid emotions, how to handle negative feedback, how to handle people rejecting you. All those things build skills that like you just wouldn't have really outside of business ownership. So, moral of the story is you have everything you need to succeed. We all know what to do next. We know what the next right step is. We just have to take that next right step, and then the step after that's going to become clear. We don't have to worry that we don't deserve something higher than what we have now. We don't have to worry about how far we have to go, or we don't have to worry about whether or not we can make it. And I think also to remember that like someone else's version of success isn't necessarily your version of success. Last week, I got to go run some errands in town with Jessica because we had some things to do. And so we went to the coffee shop, we had lunch together, we got to visit a little bit, and it was like a Tuesday. And we still were able to get all of our work done. We were still able to get our hours in. We're still able to take care of the kids. But like, I wouldn't have been able to do that 5 years ago. That just wasn't an option. I was working out of town. Like there was no just random midweek lunch with my wife. And the fact that I get to do that now, no matter what level of revenue I'm at, like to me, that's success, you know? And so I don't want to get distracted by all these motivational dudes online saying how you got to make $10 million a year and all this stupid stuff. Like really, the number doesn't matter. The number doesn't matter except to the extent that it provides the life that you're trying to give yourself and your family and the freedom that you're trying to have. So hopefully that's helpful. If you've found that you're scared of success and you found things that can help with that, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas on that. And otherwise, I will see you next time.